Ramiro I was the direct ancestor of Isabella of Castilla across 24 generations. The same year he became king, in 844, a large fleet of around 54 Viking longships landed for the first time on the coast of Asturias. No one, anywhere in Europe, had been able to stand against the Vikings as long as they had access to the sea. After landing in Gijón, they made their way to La Coruña. The residents of the city held out heroically against the Vikings. The Vikings were trying to plunder the treasures of the Cathedral of Santiago de Compostela, but the population's resistance made it impossible. Ramiro had marched down to the sea with his men in order to relieve the city and defeat the terrible invaders. In one smashing blow, he drove them back to their dragon ships. Of this battle, the Spanish historian Florenz said, "This victory must be reckoned among the most glorious in our history because the Vikings were so powerful." To this day in the north of Spain, this battle is commemorated every year with a festival on the first Sunday of August, in which replicas of an 11th century Viking longboat sails up the river Ula with men disguised as Viking warriors. The Vikings then traveled south into Muslim-occupied Spain, stopping at Lisbon and spending 13 days ransacking the city. After Lisbon, the Vikings sailed further south, attacking several cities, such as Cádiz and Medina Sidonia. At this point, they decided to sail north on the Guadalquivir River towards Sevilla, where they arrived on the 25th of September, 844. The city was besieged and fell on the 6th day after heavy fighting. The whole of Sevilla was captured except for the citadel, which remained under Muslim control. The Vikings stayed in Sevilla 40 days, until Abd al-Rahman II, Emir of Cordoba, sent troops to relieve the city. A fierce battle ensued, where the Muslims destroyed much of the Viking fleet with their Greek fire, a compound that ignited quickly and could not be extinguished with water. Many Vikings were killed and the prisoners were hanged from palm trees, though some converted to Islam to save their lives. Meanwhile, in the region of Pamplona, which had been occupied by the Moors since 714, the Basque rulers had achieved a certain level of autonomy, both from the Moors to the south and from the Franks to the north. In 824, a man called Íñigo Arista established himself as an independent ruler of the region, which he now called the Kingdom of Pamplona. This kingdom would later become the Kingdom of Navarra. Íñigo started the Navarrese dynasty, which would last until the 13th century. Meanwhile, in Asturias, King Ramiro was succeeded by his son Ordoño in the year 850. Ordoño set his eyes on the great cliff-top fortress city in the center of the country, Toledo, which was occupied by the Muslims since 712. King Ordoño formed a coalition of troops from the Kingdom of Asturias and the Kingdom of Navarra and led the army on a 200-mile march to Toledo. However, his army was defeated in 852 at the Battle of Guadalacete by Muhammad I, Emir of Cordoba. Ordoño was not discouraged. He decided to consolidate the depopulated region between Asturias and the river Duero. 4 years later, in 856, he regained the old Roman and Christian city of León and rebuilt its walls. Meanwhile, Musa ibn al-Qasawi, one of the Muslim leaders, was consolidating his territory and building a great white fortress at Albelda. In 859, King Ordoño and his ally García Íñiguez, king of Pamplona, besieged Albelda. During the siege, both sides fought at the Battle of Monte la Turce on a nearby hill. The Christians won a great victory, and around 12,000 Muslim cavalry were found among the dead. Ordoño then concentrated his troops on taking the fortress. After 7 days of siege, Ordoño captured the fortress, razed it to the ground, and executed its defenders. He was then succeeded by Alfonso III, the Great, in the year 866. The monk chronicler of Silos wrote of him, "He was famous for his desire to please God. His key concern was to propagate the faith, and he was known as a calm and sincere man. One of the first things he did was to move the capital forward from Oviedo to León. Under him, the Spaniards occupied Porto, Coimbra, and Castilla took shape around Burgos. He helped build a bigger shrine at Santiago de Compostela, making it the official shrine of the Christian kingdom. Unlike his predecessors, he was not known as a warrior, but in 878, Emir Muhammad of Cordoba rode north with a mighty army to regain the plain of León. Alfonso led a greatly outnumbered body of defenders to the forest around Polvoraria on the Orbigo River. From there, he struck an ambush and won a tremendous victory. After that, for the first time, the Moors in Cordoba signed a truce for 3 years and paid ransom to Alfonso. A few years later, Alfonso founded the city of Zamora on the plain of León, in a very strategic place, since it was one of the cities closest to the Muslim territory. In 901, a great Muslim force assaulted the walls of the city in a day known as the Day of Zamora. The battle lasted 4 days, resulting in a victory for the Christian defenders. After the battle, the Spanish defenders severed the heads of the Muslim leaders and posted them on spikes on the walls of the city for all to see. To this day, one of the main streets in Zamora is called Balborraz, which comes directly from the Arabic, meaning Gate of the Head. In the year 910, Alfonso died in Zamora after receiving the last sacraments from his confessor, Saint Gennadius of Astorga. By the end of his 44-year reign, Alfonso III had doubled the size of his kingdom.